So on the previous video, we went over the left hand and the right hand toolbar. And for this video, we're going to start going into some of these tools at the top. This is where Morpholio comes onto its own for design work. So the first tool to check out is the ruler here. So this can be moved around, moved into different positions, and it allows you to draw straight lines along the ruler, but also away from the ruler. With a double tap of the pen, you can get it to go 90 degrees, and whichever way the ruler is orientated, you can draw 90 degrees there. Up in the settings, so for each tool that you choose up here, the settings will pop up. There are different parameters for the ruler, so 45, and that will still let you do 90. And then you also have an infinity option there, which allows you to put that line anywhere you like. You can see when you're positioning the ruler, you get degrees in the center there. One little tip, if you're trying to get to 1 degree, it can be difficult to get it to stay there at the beginning. If you grab the ruler and just give it 1, 2, 3 little swishes like that, you can set it to 1 degree very easily. It removes the snapping basically. The next tool is the set square. Works in a similar way, so you can draw along the line, away from the line, and it gives you the 90 degrees on each side as well. And the settings in there, you can set your angle that you're after, so you can just tap it, type it in, tap away, changes the protractor, and then you can rotate it 90 degrees and also flip it. On the protractor here, so you can adjust the size like so. You can also grab these little yellow dots and turn it into an ellipse, and then I think it's double tap and it goes back to a circle. You can mark your center point so that you've got it as a reference point for later on if you need it. And this works in a similar way. You can draw a full circle, draw on the outside, and it also allows you to draw the degrees that you're after as well for breaking up that circle. You can also set a specific size of circle in the same way as the ruler, and it will set it to where you like. Where Morpholio comes in really handy for design work. So if, say, you were drawing the back of the house or whatever reference point is, you can draw your first line in. Let me just set this back to 90. You can draw your first line in, and if you know that this dimension here is 5 meters, you go to this point here, set the scale, and you just move these two marker points in here, type in that scale. So we're going for 5 meters, select, and then when you bring your ruler up, from there is set the scale, and you can continue your design work from there, and the ruler will adjust as you get closer, so you can get right down to the finer details there. And obviously you can adjust your pen size to kind of work in those tiny little details. The next tool along here, which is a bit different from the others, is the perspective tool. So this allows you to set your vanishing points. You've got 1, 2, and 3 point perspective, and from there you have this guide that you can move around. And so you can, let me go a bit bigger, draw away like this, and it allows you to build in perspective. Oh, so at the moment I've got it so that it has to follow the guidelines. So I would need to move it to here somewhere to continue this box. but you can turn the guide off and it will just follow the closest line that you need it to. And you can switch that obviously back and forth. And if you need to change anything later on, you can go back and reposition your vanishing points. The next tool is a stencil tool. So from here, you've got different options for the stencil. So you can flip, rotate, and mirror. You can lock the size. So at the minute, it's an adjustable size. You can lock that so it won't change. Same with the pivoting. You can turn it so it goes negative, and then these are different fill options. If you go to settings, there's a whole lot of preset settings in here with diagrams, trees, people, and then you can also set your own stencils. So you can draw your stencil shape in here. So if you wanted a shrub of some sort, and then you can screenshot that, crop it, so you've got it as just an image in your photo library, and then go to plus stencil, select it from the library, and it will allow you to build your own stencil list there. So we can fill, and so it allows you to, these sort of diagrams that you use over and over, you can just build up your own library. Another very handy tool, this is the fill tool. So you can fill it with all these different textures. So you've got landscape textures, you've got decking, paving, and interior you've got different parquet floors, tiles, and so you've got lots of different options to fill here. If you have a closed shape, you can just move the target to where you want it, and it will give you the area. So perfect if you've drawn some paving or a lawn, you can work out how many square meters that is. And then if it was a diagram, and say this was a decked area, you can then choose your color, choose fill, and it's then selected. It's filled that area there. You can, if you've got multiple areas, so say we use the polygon tool here and we set it to multiple areas. If it was lots of areas of paving or something, you can select one area and then select the next area, and it will give you a tally of the square meterage there at the end. It's very good for material quantities. And then you do have an AR view tool. So this would allow you to take the drawing and then physically walk around a room if you've done like a 3D sketch or something. It's very handy for that. And then over here, this is our cut tool. So this allows you to select certain parts of the drawing in different ways, and then these can then be moved around and transformed. And you've got uniform, freeform, 2D distort, 3D distort. So that allows you to really tweak the shape of things. So sometimes if we've done say we've drawn a fence in a 3D perspective, what you can do is use your fill tool to create an area of fencing material like this, and then you can fill that space, then go to your cut tool and cut the fencing out, and then you can 2D distort it into position, and it just gives you that sense of a slatted fence. This is also handy for, previously we talked about bringing in photos and editing them. It allows you to do the same thing. So you can cut out. Oh, and so you have to make sure you go to turn on edit images, and then it will allow you to cut out an area and move around. One thing to show you now also is, so this photo has its own layer here at the moment. If you want to copy and paste something from one layer to another while you've got it selected, just double tap the layer that you'd like to move it to, and then that moves to the next layer, and you can see it's been removed from the photo there. So we can then delete that layer, and then that leaves us with the car here, and then that can be moved around. And then in here you've got your settings, so if you need to reset your scale, you can just take it back to here. You can change the units, and then you also have a grid in here. So if we show the grid, it just gives you some guidelines to work from. And then when you set the grid, so you can set it to, say, a 10 centimeter grid, and it will shrink it down to size, so that's all to scale. And then here you can change the angle of the grid, and I quite often set the opacity just so it's a little bit lower, so it just gives you that defined line to draw over. Then if you bring the ruler up, it just gives you that spacing you can count out. Also in the settings you've got time-lapse recording, which do a screen record, and then preferences. So here when we set a new layer, you can see that it leaves this shadow on the outside. Once you start getting lots and lots of layers, you can start building up a lot of these shadows, and they can just get a bit distracting. So in the preferences, you can lose the drop shadows there. You've got rotation snap, which is for the tools, turn that on and off. Edit images, and the PDF slider, which once you get multiple PDF layers, which you can do here, a PDF slider will appear at the bottom and you can make that disappear. When it comes to sharing your images, up here you've got share. You can share them as a PDF image, a PSD, very recently a vector, and also as a Morpholio project. And you have the quality that you can change it to there. In PDF and image, when you go to share, you have the option of selecting the individual layers that you want to share. That's your background image, so that's the first layer that appears when you open a blank page, or the option of just sharing the screen as it was when you went to share. In the last video, I said that we'd come back to the dimensions tool here. So this gives you the option to put in quick dimension labels. So you can select your 2 points and then pull it out, and it just gives you these dimension points, and then you can set the accuracy up in settings. So you can do it to 1 decimal point, 2 decimal point, centimeters, millimeters, and it gets more and more accurate depending on the scale of your drawing. You can adjust the size, the color, and the style. If you've got multiple points, say along a fence line, you can pull those down, and then the next point and the next point, and it just tallies them across. And you can do the same with angles as well. So yeah, that's it for these next toolbars. For the next video, I'll show you how to import a 3D model and then sketch over the top of it with multiple viewpoints.